Hello and welcome back to Hopi Living in the City. And I am going to be showing you a quick chicken marinade that I do locally. We decided to try these little packs of chicken that we got from Walmart. So they come frozen. I believe they were frozen. There's three of these bags to a pack, and I defrosted them a little while ago, and now I'm ready to make something with them. So I went ahead and put some of this garlic in there. And what I do with this is I like to marinate the chicken for at least like maybe if you're in a rush, maybe at least an hour. But for me, I prefer overnight at least because it just gives it a better flavor. I'm just opening those up with a knife. And then I'm going to just, these bags are pretty thick. And they're pretty good sized chunks. Just going to pull them out. I guess what it does is it saves you time. You don't have to take these out and take off any excess fat or skin or anything, or debone them and then cut them up. And I'm not sure the serving sizes, but they're pretty decent. I mean, if you're trying not to overindulge, these are good sizes. Seems like it would be good serving size for maybe 2 people, you think, in one of these, or one person? I say it depends on the sides. Really, like if you were eating well, one bag could probably feed 2 people, maybe even four, and you just supplement it with vegetables instead of having more protein and less vegetables. But for me, I've always been in this mindset where I like to have more. More is better than not enough. So like if I cook, I like to have a lot just in case somebody stops by, or somebody, you want to pack it for lunch or eat it the next day. It could be just also the uh, being Hopi, you always have the culture is somebody comes over, you offer them a meal, you say, come on in and eat. Let's, sit down, have something to drink, have something to eat. Are you hungry? And it's just always been like that. I mean, you go out home and say if there's something going on out there, you go visit somebody or you're walking around, people always invite you in, say, hey, how you doing? Come on in and eat. And you go in and eat. You don't say, oh, I already ate, or I'm not hungry. That's not how it works. You go in and you eat. You thank them, you have conversation. I don't know why I'm putting on gloves to put this stuff in. So next is some of this oyster flavored sauce. I couldn't find any like fish sauce or anything, so this I thought was the next best thing, just to give it some flavor. And then I forgot we also have, oh, they need these on. I don't know why I put them on. Some soy sauce. Gotta have soy sauce. You gotta make sure you save some too for when you're gonna fry it. I don't like to add too much, but I like to add enough. Because if you add too much, it gets really like salty. And I'm pretty sure, oh, okay, right here. We have some sesame oil. This just adds a good flavor too. So I'll just add some of this on there. Not a ton, just for flavor. And I thought about adding some chili flakes just to spice it up a little. Something different, you know. I'm not going to add a lot, just a few flakes. And then that's pretty much it. Trying something new. I tried wrapping this around the bowl just so it's more sturdy. And there you go. You can see the garlic in there. You can smell the sesame oil. And basically, you can just let this sit in your fridge for a few hours. So it's 7:52 right now. So I'm going to let this sit throughout the day. And then I'm going to make some rice later. So when this is done marinating, we can throw the rice. I'll try to do some fried rice. But yeah, that's a quick and simple recipe. 4 ingredients. You can even like put whole chicken in there, and then when you're ready to cook it, you can cut it, or vice versa. You can cut it before, marinate it, so that when you're ready to cook, you just dump it in the pan and you're good to go. So let me know what you think. What do you have any recipes similar to this? And would you try it? Okay, so I let the marinade sit for about 5 hours, and now it's time to get the mixture in the frying pan. So basically, what I do is I add some olive oil in here. You can basically add how much you want. I try to use what we have as our, I guess, one and only wok. And I start out in a high temperature, on a high temperature. And basically, I'm going to start with the chicken. And this will allow me to kind of cook the main ingredient and get it to a point where I can make sure it's well cooked, and also to kind of put it aside while I continue working on the other portion. So here this dish has been marinating throughout the day, and it has some very simple ingredients. You can add more or you can add less, just depending on your palate. But I think for the most part, this is how I enjoy the chicken marinade. It has a good flavor. It has the garlic, soy sauce, and I think one of the biggest things that I like is the peanut oil. It just brings out a unique flavor. I didn't add any salt or pepper or any other spices to this. The only other thing that was added was the oyster sauce. I tried looking for like a fish sauce in the past, but I wasn't lucky enough to find anything locally. So basically, I just fry this up. I try to have it or keep it on high as much as I can, just to not only make sure that it's well cooked, but also to try to cook off some of the marinade that was in the bag. You may have a different approach, but I think for the most part, I just cook away on high as much as I can. I know that even with this gas grill, it's not anything similar to what you see at restaurants where they have those huge propane and butane flames that kind of just really, really heat up the pan and allow for a really fast cook time. But I try my best just to keep it on high and not burn anything, but also make sure that everything's cooked well. I try also not to make a huge mess on the stove because it's a lot of work trying to clean it up, and I just try to do my best to be conservative with my stirring and shaking the pan around. I don't try to shake it around too much. Although it's nice when you go to a restaurant and you see the chefs shaking up their woks and getting everything fried and flipped around and coated and cooked on all sides. But this is just what we have here, and I try my best to cook it well and get it cooked on all sides, get everything flavored, and cook off a lot of that marinade. You can see all the liquid there, and it's kind of evaporating while it cooks. I got the fan on, got the TV on. The missus is in the living room, and you can see in the background I also have the rice that I did earlier in the day. I generally try to do my rice beforehand, like a whole day ahead. That way I can let it cool and then put it in the fridge. And it just has a different kind of consistency. But today I didn't really get a chance to do that, so I'm kind of taking a different approach. And it as you'll see, it comes out well. So I'm just trying to cook the chicken well, making sure it's at a high temperature, trying to boil off or cook off all the marinade fluids, and trying to get a little fancy here and there, but for the most part, trying not to make a mess. So I'm trying to get a pan or bowl ready for this once it's done, so I can pour the mixture out once it's well cooked and set it aside while I use the wok for the actual eggs, rice, vegetable, soy sauce mix. And you want to make sure that it's well done, but you don't want to dry it out. You don't want to make it too tough. And I suppose you could add a little bit of lime to your marinade just to make sure that the chicken's really tender when it comes time to, you know, cook it and consume it. It's also important to keep track of the size of the cuts, because the smaller the size, it seems like it has a tendency to get hard or tough or dry. So you want to get some nice thick cuts of chicken. And like I said, I didn't add any pepper or salt to this, but it's kind of up to you what you like to consume, what kind of flavor you have. I try to keep the sodium content to a minimum, and as you all know, the soy sauce has a lot of sodium in it, so you'll be sure and get your sodium fix here. So it looks like it's almost done. I'm going to go ahead and just let some of the liquid evaporate, making sure that the meat is definitely cooked well. I'm also trying to make sure that everything goes well. I don't want anything to be overcooked. I don't want anything to be too watery. And so as you can see here, it's pretty much most of the marinade has evaporated and incorporated into the meat. And so now I'm just going to set this aside while I prepare this for the eggs, rice, and vegetables. So I'm putting a little bit more olive oil in here. I turned it down a little bit, but it's not, I guess I could have turned it down a little more. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my bowl ready. I like to crack my eggs and put them in a bowl, put the shells in a bowl just when I'm done, so it keeps it contained and I don't have to walk to the garbage can and come back and wash my hands or cross contaminate everything or anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 4 eggs in here. You can put in however many eggs you want just based on the amount of rice you have and the amount of chicken you have. It's pretty much up to you how eggy or the consistency or color or texture you want. So I got my eggs in here. It's not on a super high temp, otherwise I'd have some fried eggs pretty quick. And so I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up. Here you can add, if you want, maybe a little bit of pepper or some other flavoring, but generally I just mix mine up and make sure it doesn't burn. I try to make sure it's cooked well. As you can see, I let it kind of sit on the sides so it cooks, because the last thing you want in your chicken fried rice or egg fried rice or shrimp fried rice is chunks of watery egg. So you can see here I'm trying to just make sure it's cooked well without burning, making sure that it's got a good color and the flavors well. I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't burn on the sides. So I'm just working the pan well, making sure I get the eggs moved around before it gets too hot. And then once it gets to a pretty good consistency, you can tell it's getting done, but it's not overcooked. Then you can start to add your rice. And here, like I said earlier, I didn't get a chance to refrigerate the rice during the day, but I kind of mixed it up with my gloves and made sure that it's not too sticky. It was a little sticky, and I thought about adding maybe some olive oil to the rice itself to, unstick it or whatnot. But I said, just let's just try it and see how it works. So here I'm getting ready to start stirring it. I'm gonna incorporate the eggs into the rice, and I want to add some soy sauce just to give it some flavor. You can add as much as you want. You can add different flavors to it. You can add some more of your fish sauce or oyster sauce. You can add some water. You can add some thickener. It's just really up to you how you want to have it presented and flavored. So here you could see I'm trying to incorporate the rice into with the egg, and I'm also trying to make sure that nothing sticks to the side or burns. I'm also trying to make sure that the soy sauce is well incorporated without getting it too salty. And I'm trying to break up any pieces of rice that are still clumped together. And it's pretty much ready for the vegetable mix. And we get a vegetable mix. We try to keep some in the freezer. And here I'm adding a little bit of the peanut oil because I personally like that. It just gives it a nice flavor and a nice scent. And I'm also adding some more soy sauce just for color. And you can add as much or as little as you want. If you have family members that don't really want a lot of soy sauce, you can go very light, and then they can add it on the on once you serve it, they can add it on their end, just so it's not too salty and it's not too dark. And so it looks pretty much well incorporated. You can still see a little bit of white rice in there. So I'm just trying to mix everything up and make sure everything's looking good, everything's well incorporated. There's no, you know, clumps of white rice. And now I'm going to get the vegetables ready. They were frozen. I just broke them up, crushed them up a little bit, making sure there's no clumps. And it's basically your typical frozen vegetable mix. Nothing fancy, nothing special. And you can add as much or as little as you want. It's up to you. It's up to your guests. And I think if you want to be a little bit more on the healthy side, you could add more vegetables. But for me, I'm just, just adding a little at a time. And I'm adding more soy sauce just to try to make sure everything's incorporated and nothing's sticking. In some of the shows, they have these little bowls where they take little bits of different um, liquids. But for me, I'm just throwing in some water just to make sure I can steam it a little, kind of prevent it from drying out and allowing the vegetables to cook and become incorporated. So it's looking pretty good. I'm trying to make sure the vegetables are warm, and when you eat it, you're not getting like chunks of cold vegetables, semi-frozen vegetables. And once I get it well incorporated and everything looks pretty good, I'm going to start adding the chicken. I'm just trying to add as much as I can without overdoing it. And I'm also just leaving a little bit of chicken out in case my boys want to have just chicken with regular rice. You can also incorporate some shrimp here or some pork in lieu of the chicken. You just have to make sure and prepare it separately, making sure if you want to marinate it or add any separate flavors. So here the chicken wasn't out too long, so it's not really cooled off yet. I'm just adding some more water to make sure it's not drying out. You can see the steam coming up. And so it's pretty much done now. I just need to make sure that the chicken's warm and the vegetables are warm. There's no big old chunks of white rice, and everything looks flavored well. So it's pretty much done at this point. I'm just making sure everything's warm, everything's well blended. I'm also trying not to make a huge mess. What would you add if you were in the kitchen? Would you add more vegetables? Would you add onions? Put it in the comments. Let us know how you like to make your rice dishes. So it's pretty much done at this point, and it's time to start serving. I don't know how you like to eat your rice, if you want it like really warm or hot. You have a main dish and this is just a side dish, or this is your main dish itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and start serving some out. It's just the missus and I tonight, and so it's not going to be gone right away. We're gonna just kind of nibble on it and taste it. I put up a little bit on this plate here so we can do a taste test. And for the most part, it seems pretty good. I think in the future, I might go a little light on the soy sauce. And I would definitely add some, maybe one half to a full lime to the initial marinade, just to make sure that the chicken is really tender. But as you can see here, everything's done. Vegetables are looking good. You could add more if you want, or you could add different types. You could add maybe some different types of vegetables if that's what you like. But the chicken looks good. Everything came out well. And I'm just going to let it cool for a little bit before we start eating. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the missus has her dish. I have my dish. And I guess something that you could also consider is, when you go to those Asian food places, they have the crushed red peppers or red chili with some oil. And I could think, or I could only imagine that that would add some very good flavor to this, because I really like a lot of spice, but nothing too hot. So I'm going to go ahead and give the missus hers, and thank you for watching.